This is the 17th season of Bass Talk Live with your hosts, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrak. BTL is brought to you by Lawrence, Bass Cat Boats, APCO, Ducket Fishing, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, Exo Lures, Yamagatsu, The Bass Tank, and Denali Rods. BTL coming at you.
Well, I don't really know how to open up the show, Brad, because this is normally where Mark Jeffries says we are going to talk bass fishing and anything else we want to talk about, and then throws it over to me. But I'm sitting in the the conductor's chair?
You were
the man running the show today for BTL after a 2-week hiatus from the show. Matt Pangrak here, joined by Bradley Hallman after his month-long adventure at Disney World and all over Florida, and then several tire, auto, and brake shops on the way back. We'll get into all of that later, but it is Monday, March 22nd.
Golly, I can't believe it's that late.
How's it going, Brad?
It's going wonderful, Glad we're back on. Glad this whole show is rolling right now.
It is, and if you follow BTL on any of these social media channels, that would be YouTube or Facebook, I have posted several updates over the past couple weeks, but I know there is a large section of our listeners who listen on the podcast platform only, and have been wondering where BTL has been the last couple weeks. Obviously, we have a lot of stuff going on in the industry. We had the inaugural NPSL, which we'll talk about later. Our boy, you're actually wrapped by them, sponsors the show. The Bass Tank, John Sukup, won the inaugural NPSL. We've had an elite series that finally got underway on Lake Pickwick. We have the first BPT of the season going on right now on a kind of stingy Sam Rayburn due to the weather. We have 10-pounders worth $5,000. We have guys driving all night to be able to fish both tours. We got a lot of stuff going on. But first and foremost, what do you think the fans want to know about, Brad?
Same thing I want to know about. Let's get to Mark.
How Mark Jeffries is doing. Now, he did have an accident, and as I've pointed out in the in kind of the updates that we have given, I kind of wanted Mark to tell how this went. It does revolve around a basketball story, believe it or not. So Mark is home and recovering. He did spend about a week in the hospital, took a nasty fall and hit his head. So this is some weird reverse universe, but right off the hopper, we're about 5 minutes into the show. We are going to go to a guest, and that guest is going to be Mark Jeffries, a guest on his own show. There he is. There's
What's
Mark.
up, guys?
What's up?
What's up?
My gosh. Now, take the glasses off first so we can see what's going on.
Yeah, looky there.
There's Mark. All right.
Looks a little better than it did.
A lot of well wishes, a lot of fans, a lot of people in the industry over the last 2 weeks have been wondering, what the heck happened, Mark?
Yeah. Well, first of all, first and foremost, the amount of thanks and well wishes that I have received over the past 2 weeks has just been incredible. And I just want to thank everybody out there that has tried to reach out to me, definitely giving me thoughts and prayers. It has been an enormously challenging last couple of weeks, and I seem to be getting better every day, but it was 2 weeks ago from this past Saturday is when I had my accident. And for those people that don't know a whole lot about me and don't know a whole lot about the show, I'm just kind of going to give a Cliff Note version of what happened and then just kind of give you guys an indication of what's happened over the last couple of weeks. As you can see, my eyes are pretty messed up. And this is the best that they have looked in 3 weeks. And what happened was we were in the area finals for high school basketball here in Oklahoma. And we were playing about 2.5 hours away from our high school in Chakota, Oklahoma. And we lost on Friday night, but you have to lose twice to get to state, or to not get to state. As long as you make it through the area consolation bracket, you still make it to state. So we played that Saturday night. We were playing Tulsa McLean, very, very good team, top 10 team in the state, and we ended up winning. Kids played outstanding, played one of the best games that they've played all year long. As soon as the buzzer went off, I jumped up in joy, was high-fiving, doing all kinds of celebrating, and took a picture, gave Coach Word a big hug, gave players hugs. We took a group picture, and as the picture stuff was wrapping up, it was a fairly good walk to the locker room. We had to walk out of the arena into this hallway and walk down the hallway. And as we were walking down the hallway, I turned back. There was a manager behind me, and I go, "You ready?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm ready." And I opened the locker room door, and the next thing I remember is being on a helicopter being meta-flighted to St. John's Hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, at the time, honestly, I had no idea what was going on. And I was in ICU. I honestly, folks, if the EMTs and the people that were involved do not make that decision to Metaflight me, there's a really good chance that I'm dead, because I had major bleeding on the brain. And the decision that they made to Metaflight me, they were going to Metaflight me to OU Medical Center, but they decided that it was closer to get me to a trauma center in Tulsa, and that's why they Metaflighted me to the hospital in Tulsa at St. John's. I do not remember anything except being on that helicopter with the principal, Mr. Jackson, being to my side, asking, "Hey, does Carolyn know what's going on? That's my wife. And make sure you get my backpack." He was very there was something about the backpack that I kept telling the principal. I was like, "Make sure you get my backpack. Make sure you get my backpack." So got to the hospital, and they started treatment on the bleeding on the brain. And I had actually broken my orbital bone. Hence, that's why my eyes look really bad. And the treatment went well. There was no surgery required because of the treatment that they decided to go ahead and push forth on me. And I was in ICU for 5 days in Tulsa. It was absolutely miserable, could not really function, slept a lot. My head felt like it was in the old Uncle Fester from the Addams Family Vice constantly. I've never had and never experienced anything like I did. Well, I got released from the hospital. They sent me home from Tulsa back.
It was on Wednesday.
Back to
night.
Oklahoma State. I think, was it Wednesday or Thursday? I think it was Thursday, man.
It was the same day, because I was in the studio, so it would have been a Wednesday, because Carolyn texted me and was like, I walked in and they said, the seizure risk of seizures is down. Do you want to go home? And apparently you said yes, and that was it. So she was home with you and was freaking out because she was like, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, that's right. It was that. So I spent 4 days in ICU. And then I remember that last day I was in ICU, the beginning of the day, and then toward the end of the morning, they transferred me to a regular bed. But I was getting CAT scans and MRIs on a daily basis to make sure that the brain swelling wasn't increasing, and that my eye was going to be okay. So that's kind of what happened. Now the post recovery. So that first week, I was totally out of it. Second week, pretty much out of it too. Did not leave the house. Just kind of walked around the house and kind of was really out of it, very fuzzy-headed, very lightheaded, very just totally out of it. But I would have periods of time where I was okay and I could actually kind of somewhat function. And there are so many good things that turned out from this that could have been a lot worse. And I'm enormously thankful, health-wise and just my body-wise, was able to absorb what took place. Now, finally, toward the latter part of last week, I was able to talk to Coach Word. I was able to talk to Mr. Jackson, Principal Jackson. And from what I understand, when I walked into the locker room, I immediately hit a slick spot on the floor, and there was no bracing. There was nothing. It went from slipping to me falling directly back and hitting the backside of my head and the side of my head on the concrete. And that's what caused all the damage.
And explain what caused the black eyes, because that was the part that made me cringe.
Well, my brain and the inside of my head, along with everything else that's in there, pushed against my
There's
orbital.
a lot of stuff going on in there, Mark. Anyway, continue.
It pushed against my orbital bone and the front side of my face so hard that it broke my orbital bone on the inside.
Wow.
And that's why I have, and it was from the top of my eyebrows all the way down to
bad.
About the middle part of my cheek was solid purple.
It was bad.
I mean, Matt, you saw it that one day.
I sent it to Brad. Have you ever had black eyes like that before? Like,
No.
have you ever been in a fight that you got a black eye in?
No, I've been in fights, but never got a black eye like that. It was like my whole face was a black eye. This is what it was.
Yes. It looked like a mask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
It was really bad. So I cannot thank the EMTs and everybody that made the decision to Metaflight me, because that probably saved my life.
Absolutely.
It really did. Probably did. And it's when you're old and I make fun of myself and people make fun of me being old, but the reality is when you are older, your body does not heal like a young person's. And the healing process that I'm going through right now, it's just going to take time. And I can't drive. I can't really do a whole lot. This is about to the extent that I can do. It's hard for me to focus. It's hard for me to look at a computer screen for a long period of time, more than, 15, 20 minutes. And then I got to kind of back off and rest a little bit. So things and actions, Brad and Matt, that we take for granted, you don't realize how important some of the little things just in your everyday life is to the functionality of just being a person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now,
let me say one more thing.
Yeah.
And this shows how much class that exists in high school basketball in the 4A class here in Oklahoma. We made it to state. We played Kingfisher. And we've had this whole discussion about the Kingfisher team and how dominant, one of the greatest teams in the entire history of basketball in the state of Oklahoma. But Matt and Brad, everybody out there, I've mentioned one player, Bijan Cortez, who is going to attend the University of Oklahoma. Before we played them, they actually presented Coach Word with a card with the entire team signing that card and putting some messages on that card, and Coach Reese of Kingfisher. And it was really, really cool to get that card for them. Then the governing body of basketball here in the state of Oklahoma, they actually had a moment of silence for me prior to the game at the state championship. And, guys, there are people out there that coach 20, 30, 40 years that never make it to the big house. And here I finally make it to the big house, and I got to fall down and hit my head.
you'll make it back. We've told you that. That'd be like making the final day and then you don't get to fish and then being like, oh, well, I could have fished on the final day. You'll make it back. You said your team is good.
We knew this was going to be one of the hardest parts on you. Matt and I talked about it.
This
when you
all
were in the
yeah.
hospital. I was like, dude, the fact that he's in that game and not there is going to kill him.
Yeah, it was very, very. It sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, it just did, because I have busted my tail in the coaching world to reach that pinnacle, and that's what the pinnacle is. That's what everybody tries to reach, is that playing that game in the State Fair arena. And I hope you guys are right. I mean, when I get back to normal, obviously I'm going to bust my tail and continue doing everything that I can do with these kids to make them better and to be a better coach, and to do everything that I can to try and get back to that position to where we have the opportunity to be in the big house. A couple other things real quick. The people at all the organizations, Bass, Major League Fishing, the NPSL, a tremendous amount of well wishes from them. And I want to thank all the organizations and the people in those organizations for checking in on me. And this is a tiny industry, but at the same time, the tightness that sometimes you feel, even though everybody's very competitive, it was really, really humbling to get the outreach from people that hope that I get back in the studio and get back to my normal Mark phase. And then the last thing I want to say, and then you guys can ask me whatever you want, is my real good friend Chris Prather, the professional bowler. The World Series of Bowling was taking place when I had my accident, and this is right before his matches. He was texting me and checking in on me, and I can't thank Chris enough for his support. He went on to win the doubles title, and then he finished second in I think it was the Scorpion Championship, and then made one other TV final. But I really appreciate his support and the bowling industry support, and wish me well getting back to the lanes and getting back to doing what I love to do, which is fishing, bowling, and basketball. So I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to take specific instructions from my neurologist, and the wife has been unbelievable, folks. And while all this is going on, for those people that don't know, my wife's father passed away the day before this accident happened. So she's dealing with trying to take care of me. She's grieving from the loss of her father. And there's a reason that we have been married almost 30 years. And without her, I don't think that I make it through this whole process. So Carolyn is very, very special to me, and will be a very special part of my life for whatever remains. And man, I feel for her. I feel for her family. And Matt has been, there's a reason we make such a great team. And it was very evident over these last 2 weeks how much that you mean to what we have going on, and how much our friendship means to me and my family. And hopefully soon, man, I'll be back pushing the buttons and making people laugh, hopefully.
Now the key to this is two things here. The doctors are predicting, they believe you will make a full recovery.
Yes.
And right now you have basically a really bad bruise, except it happens to be on your brain, and you will continue to get better and better. But there is not like, hey, in 11 days you'll be better. It's kind of a case-by-case instance, and as you go through the doctors, you'll just continually, gradually get better, and then eventually but it could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and it kind of depends on the headaches. Like I said, when I walked in, when I saw him for the first time, Brad, he was wearing a mock turtleneck with the Nike on. He had the hat, and I said, "Well, I see the accident didn't affect your sense of style." I mean, obviously, as it is now, but a lot of people have reached out, and it means a lot. Obviously, to Mark, and I talked to Carolyn pretty much every day about this with Mark, and it means a lot to her. She reads all the comments. And the people within the industry, people that you haven't like totally gotten along with in the past, Mark, believe it or not, but it shows that it's a big family here and that people do care. Very genuine concern over it, and the entire fishing industry and bowling industry and basketball industry is rooting for you, Mark, and really glad to see that you're on the road to recovery. Those eyes look a lot better than they have the last couple days, though.
Yeah, they're pretty sore, man.
You can tell they're on the mend compared to what they were, and that things are getting better for sure. I know when you first sent me the picture when you saw him, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, I didn't really want to send it to anyone, but
Man.
I sent it to like 3 people.
He really looked black.
You know, Carolyn sent me a GIF of the she sent me like a GIF of that dude who wears the black mask, like the cartoon, and it says, "We get there when we get there." She's the one who sent it to me.
Yeah.
It looks dead nuts like you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I know one of the viewers sent you a $50 Uber Eats gift card. So when you start going through your emails, you better get that. That's a lot of Chick-fil-A without
That's
buns
awesome.
or breading or whatever you can eat now.
Yeah.
You lost some weight too.
I've lost in 3 weeks. I've lost 21 pounds.
Wow.
And I hopefully that will help me out with everything else that I have going on from a health standpoint. But man, it's weird because when you miss something and you're not doing what you love to do, it makes you appreciate that thing and everything else around it even more. And the fans have been incredible. The people in the industry have been incredible, and I'm going to do what the doctors tell me to do. It kind of sucks that one little fall causes this much damage, but at the same time, it could have been so much worse, guys. And Matt, you tell me all the time, you just dwell on the negative, you know, I am negative Nelly and all that, but I'm really, really trying to push on the positive with doing exactly what my neurologist and, you know, everybody else that's involved with trying to get me better here, what they want me to do. Right now, folks, the plan is I have another MRI on Friday. If the brain bleeding has completely stopped, which my last scan, there was just very, 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 very little brain bleeding left. If the brain bleeding has stopped and I feel somewhat stable along with the bruising continues to go away, then hopefully I can get released and I can kind of ease back into things next week when Matt and Brad are on the road trying to capture titles and get top 10 finishes. So that's kind of the plan right now, folks.
Dude, I'm just so glad to even see you on here. I mean, from where we went a few weeks ago to now, I mean, everybody's happy that you're here, dude. And when I walked in the other day, first time I saw you, and the first words out of your mouth was, "Hey, when are we going back to Lake X?" I was like,
yeah,
he's getting there. Like we're on the right path.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there. So, you guys, you know, it's the Matt and Brad show this week, and I know they'll do a great job. But I'm going to continue with this recovery, and hopefully next week I will be at a point where I can get released and get back into normality a little bit.
Amen.
I have controls over here. I can do whatever I want.
Yes, you can.
And he's inside. So here's what we're going to do at Otter Bark. Let's see if I do this right. We're gonna send him out with some Jeffries music.
May give him a
Jeffries,
headache.
No headbanging.
Great. It was great to see you. Whoa. No, that's not the headbanging. This is intense metal.
Yeah.
It's great to hear that you're doing better. It's great to see that you're getting better. Oh, look at that.
Right.
I could bump it up like that.
Yeah.
This is what we listened to for 10 years like this. There he is, Mark Jeffries. All right, let's see if I can get him out of here.
All right. Peace, guys.
Good to see you, Bubba.
There it is.
The man, the myth, the Mark Jeffries.
Look, I even know how to fade it out now.
Dude, I'm just so freaking pumped that he's like.
Yeah, that was terrifying, dude. So,
I know.
So it was Saturday night, and he texted me Friday night, and that was when I left Florida, and I was 19 hours from the house, and I was really upset, and I just drove all night. And I got home, and I was sleeping, and Steve Gillum, one of the guys that fishes he's a firefighter in Norman in Oklahoma City there. Yeah. And he called me a couple times, and I was sleeping. I was like, why is he calling me at like 10 at night? And it was Saturday night, and he was like, dude, he's like, my daughters were at the game. They go there. Like, Mark, he fell. He got in an accident. So I text Carolyn, and Carolyn's like, how did you hear about this? And I mean, it was touch and go for a couple days.
Yeah.
And obviously, you could tell how much the basketball meant to him, which is, I mean, it's good that he's got something that he cares that much about. It's kind of scary, though, when you think about how fragile everything is.
You know, I was thinking about it, with him missing the game that would have been, at the state title games, and how much that was going to bother him, and obviously it still does. We a lot of us played team sports growing up, right? And there's not many winners, right? There's only one state champion, right? The whole state doesn't play basketball or football for the purpose of being the winner, right? I mean, that's not why sports have carried on. It's about learning lifelong lessons that you learn about teamwork and all different kinds of things that you learn in life. His boys learned a lot from his experience, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
How quick, how fragile, how, those are important things that those kids will remember the rest of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you remember Kingfisher, which Mark talked about exclusively on the show, was that team that's like ridiculous, impossible. And I actually talked to AJ, Mark's son, he's like 6'4", 220 now.
Yeah.
He's starting football in college this year. And I was talking to him. And that first time they played Kingfisher beat him by like 30, 40 points. All they did was make him shoot 3-pointers. I mean, it was not pretty.
Yeah.
And they went into the state finals, and it was like a 5-point game with 3 minutes left.
That's awesome.
So yeah, those kids learned a lot. You know a lot about that. I mean, you've got a lot of kids that are active in activities and sports and things like that. So
it's the big lessons in life, and I'm trying to look at the positive side.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive. I mean, the dude could. Yeah. It was very scary, but I guess we'll wrap up that part, and then we'll actually move on to the fishing. But I want to say one more thing. So, like, I'm sitting here, and I came in, and Mark kind of showed me how I kind of had an idea of how to run the show just because I've been doing it for so long, but I've never actually sat in this chair. And one thing you guys don't realize with just Mark being gone for 2 weeks is how much he does, in the industry, the relationships, and how much work he puts into Bass Talk Live to be the production, to see what it is that you guys get to listen to and see. And it's not just like a site, like he puts his heart and soul into it. And there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 monitors and 2 soundboards and all this. And I've got it all labeled with 3 notes, and to see what he does and how good he is at what he does and how long he has done it and pioneered it. And then other people that have caught on to what he does, starting with the on location coverage and then the live coverage and BTL and the XM, dude. He's not even listening anymore. He's not on. I know he won't listen to this. The guy does not get the credit that he deserves within the industry for what he's done to push the sport, the industry, and the way it is viewed, covered, listened to, and watched forward. And this just kind of put things into perspective. Me getting to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that I quite frankly haven't matured and taken a hold of.
Yep.
Very eye-opening for me.
It's awesome, dude. And he has. I mean, for 20 years he's been pushing this or longer. Like I say, 2006, my rookie year on the Elite Series, we were roommates, and it was his first year on tour. I mean, Mark's been doing this a long time, come up with a lot of the original ideas. I laugh whenever I come up with an idea, then somebody takes it or whatever. It's always the Mark Jeffries deal because he's just been so creative his whole career. That's what he does. He creates.
He is. So, we made it 30 minutes, and we're still live, and nothing is gone wrong, so that's a plus. So let's we'll run a couple commercials. We're going to come back. We have a lot to talk about.
We do.
And we're going to talk all fishing.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, I lied. I have a basketball. In honor of Mark,
March Madness.
I have some March Madness. and it correlates very closely to something happened in 2002.
Okay.
With John Sappington and the G-Man, Gerald Swindle. You have a perplexed look on your face.
Well, I was thinking of Sappington and his accident, but you're not relating to that at
No.
all.
I'm relating to something that happened in the summer on a very hot fishery that is...
In 2002?
Yeah, it's pretty much a carbon copy of what's going on with...
Carbon copy.
With March Madness.
Okay.
All right, let's run some commercials.
How are you going to relate March Madness to fishing?
Well, we'll have to see after this. If I hit this button and a commercial pops up, we're freaking rolling, man.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. The best fish finding tools, from chirp sonar and fish reveal to active imaging and new active target live sonar, and complete touchscreen control from your trolling motor to your big motor. For a limited time, building the ultimate fishing system will be easier on your wallet. Upgrade to HDS Live with a Ghost trolling motor, active target sonar, or live side sonar, and save up to $800.
Basscat's legendary 20-foot platform has been paired with angler-approved accessories for 2021. Puma FTD features the proven hull used by many of the top names in bass fishing today, backed by a transferable lifetime warranty. The Puma FTD boasts a full team deck concept which enhances efficiency for you and your tournament partners. Turnkey tournament-winning performance. The Puma FTD SP from Basscat.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
You've been waiting all week for this, and Sunline wants to make sure you're ready for it with bulk spools of all your favorite fishing lines.
Oh, it's so fun.
Bulk up with Sunline.
Guys, what makes our Spro lures beat the competition?
I mean, you have to admit, we nailed it with my McSticks and rock crawlers.
Man, we've all won money on my plugs. My Wamick shop put fish in my boat.
One thing's for sure, we all count on our Spro lures to beat the competition.
Designing cutting-edge baits with some of America's top anglers. Spro lures beat the competition. To see the entire lineup, visit a retailer near you or spro.com.
All right, we're back. And now it is time to talk fishing. It's good to hear from Mark.
Absolutely.
He's good for about, what I've noticed, and I've been over here 3 days, 30, 45 minutes, and then he just kind of takes a break. Yeah. But it's a good 30, 45 minutes. So the beginning of March, Brad, we embarked on the first Bass Master Open. And I want to get into your story first because we'll just kind of migrate through. We'll do your story, and then we'll go into the NPFL, and then we'll go into what's going on now. We might be here for 45 minutes. You good?
It's not going to take 45 minutes for me to tell my part. Mine's going to be pretty quick.
Well, no, you got a lot of stuff happen. You can't leave out any of the details. That's the interesting stuff.
Okay.
But so we fished the 4 through the 6 in the Bass Master Open. We could just gloss over the results of that. They're both subpar finishes for both of us.
Mine was so bad I don't even know where I finished because I have no desire whatsoever to look.
Well, I know I finished dead nuts middle of the pack, 111th out of 222. Okay. Cannot get any more average than that. Okay. But following that, I drove home, and you went to Disney World for like a month.
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed like it.
I would be interested in hearing of that because you had 4 kids, a father-in-law, the bass boat, the wife, and you just got back like 2 days ago.
Yeah, I got back last Thursday or Friday, I guess. Yeah, the wife was like, hey, you're going to Florida. You know, the kids hadn't been to Disney World. They're at this age, blah, 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 you know. I was like, all right. So they wanted to fly in, and then last minute we'd had this plan for a while, and then last minute she calls me and she's like, hey, and my dad's coming too. So we had father-in-law and all the kids, and we spent 5 days doing different Disney parks. I mean, it's not like you're just at Disney World every day. You do a couple days at Epcot. Anyway, it was a long vacation because then we left there and went to the coast and met some friends of mine that I actually grew up with in East Tennessee that now lives in Apopka, Florida. And I'd actually left my boat at his house. He's got a garage that will hold a 20-foot bass boat. I've left it there many times through the years. It's a great place to leave a boat, maybe jump on a plane, fly to Oklahoma, go back, whatever. But anyway, spent another 5 days at the coast with them, and then took the family back to the airplane, and my 10-year-old son decided he didn't want on that plane. He wanted to ride home with Dad. I was like, I don't think you really know what this 20 hours you're getting into is. But he was great. He was a trooper, and it was an interesting trip home. I'd stopped at a stop sign. I've been noticing my brakes on that trip were starting to grind like it needed new brake pads.
You got out of Florida first. I mean, or how far did you make it?
Barely. I mean, I got out of Florida, yeah. I pulled up out of the Panhandle and turned north into Alabama, and I hadn't gone very far north, trying to get up there to Montgomery, Birmingham area. And I stopped at a stop sign, and I noticed that my brakes didn't quite feel right, and I turned left down a 4-lane highway going downhill, a pretty steep hill, with a red light at the bottom of it, and cars were stopping. And I was like, dude, those brakes, and I'm pushing them, and nothing's happening, and I'm getting deeper into it, and I'm like, crap, I've got this 10-year-old in here, no brakes, boat behind me, Anyway, it at the bottom of the brake, it would slow down just a little bit, and as I reached the bottom of the hill, I just pulled over to the right away from everyone, and there was a driveway there, and I pulled in that driveway, and hey, finally something went right. It was a brake place. It was a brake change.
Your brakes went out in
the
parking lot of a brake repair store.
That is correct. But the problem is that it was 5:30. They closed at 5, and but gentleman came out, mechanic, and did the best he could. We did some Southern ingenuity. And so what had happened, basically the caliper had pushed all the way through because the brake pads had gotten so low, which allowed the fluid to come out. So then you no longer have any pressure on your brake line because each time you hit the brake, fluid's going out the line. So a good pair of vice grips.
Oh, so that picture of the vice grips, you drove home with vice grips?
I may have drove home with vice grips, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was touch and go. So
you got home Friday.
Yeah, it was a slow trip home. I didn't drive very fast.
And now
got home Friday, and so now we're truck's getting new brakes, and we can move on with our lives and start to head to Alabama here, you and I, at the end of this week. So that's pretty much the highlight of my story. The fishing part, dude, it's short because it sucked. I mean, it sucked. I did what I have done my entire career really well. I can find a way to completely even catch a limit both days and still be so far in left field that it doesn't really matter. Like, it's amazing how I do it sometimes.
We were talking a little bit about off air, and I said, like, I could handle finishing in the middle of the pack in Florida for my first time. Not where I wanted to finish, but when you just make egregiously wrong decisions, knowing what the right decisions are, that's what, like, concerned me. Yeah. For me. Now, I don't know about you, but I mean, you look back on it, and it's interesting how hindsight's always 20/20. And as a, I guess you would say, analyst of professional fishing, I've watched hundreds of tournaments, and everybody does. And you sit around at the weigh-in, and Brian Newswind down in Florida was a perfect example of this. You're sitting back watching it on the St. Johns River, and you're like, lipless on a shell bed and flipping a Junebug Cinco on pad stems?
Yeah, no brainer.
Duh. How come everyone isn't doing it, and he wins by like 8 pounds?
Right.
And it's real easy to say, oh, well, anybody could have done that. Well, you're watching it after it's done. You're not seeing the decisions that are made as it goes up. And when you're in it, it's real easy to have one or two little things completely get you off of that. And even though the answer is right there in front of you, man, you end up on some wild goose chase, or you make one bad call, and the obvious at the time doesn't seem that obvious. And then by the time it's obvious, it's too late.
That's correct. That's usually how it goes. Or, you're in the middle of doing whatever you think is safe or the best bet, or, just the highest percentage. And as you're doing it, you're thinking to yourself, what in the hell am I doing? This is stupid. When I get those feelings, it's usually not going to be a good day.
Yeah. So a couple weeks after the Open, did you see they had the Costa down there on the Harris chain?
Yeah. And they caught Jim.
Jim.
It was Jim.
So when we went to Apopka to practice, there are these two guys that were in like a rowboat. Mm-hmm. Did you see how they crappie fish down there? They call them specks.
Yeah, they call them specks.
Just like a cane pole with a line on the end, and they dip the minnow right on the stalk of the
cane.
Of the cane or the lily. Mm-hmm. Or so. I mean, they're way up in. There's no casting. There's no looking. They're just dipping with a minnow.
Right.
So I passed these two, and they're like, "Oh, you trying to catch that big one? You trying to make that money?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
There was a big sign right there where we launched that morning, right at the boat ramp.
Really?
It was like, yeah, a big sign.
I didn't see it.
With Jim, and it has this whole story about this tagged.
I did not see it.
10-pounder or whatever it's supposed to be. Because I was actually joking with Kyle Walters. I was like, what do you think the chance of somebody catching that? He's like, dude, she's swimming in the middle of Apopka, which is like the second largest lake in Florida.
It is.
It's
kind of like Jurassic Park there. Yeah. It's like in the middle of nowhere. There's not really much around it. You got to make a long run.
I'm like you. I'm checking in on the Toyota deal to see how those guys are doing. And here's this story about this guy that's got a tagged fish in his boat, and he's going to call it that night and find out what it is. And I'm thinking, he just said he was flipping. I bet that dude's in Apopka. He had a really big bag, and he's got a 10-pounder. I bet he caught Jim.
He did. So they named this fish. They named it Jim. And it was it 10 grand if you were registered, 5 grand if you weren't, or something like that?
Sounds right, yeah.
But they won fish, and it was to try to the Florida Parks and Water, whatever, did it as a contest.
Yep.
Dude caught it on day one of the Costa. Christian Grieco.
Yeah.
It was insane. He had a top 10, and he got 5 grand for the fish. It was 12 pounds when they tagged it. It was like just shy of 10 or right at 10 when he caught it, and they tagged it in January. Yeah. But what are the odds? I mean, dude, I wanted to talk about this because you spent 2 days on it. I spent a day. There's a lot of reed head. I mean, there's a lot of cover in that lake. Yeah. Miles and miles and miles, and it all looks identical.
Yeah.
And this dude makes the flip, catches the fish in the tournament, top 10s in the tournament, and gets 5 grand for catching that fish.
Yeah. It was the regret of my entire week was that I didn't spend my week of tournament days in Apopka. But yeah. It was. I couldn't believe that fish was caught just because of the amount of size of that lake. Like I say, it is the second largest lake in the state of Florida, and there is a tremendous amount of water. And apparently, you know what that told me? You know what that told me when they caught Jim?
What's that?
The majority of those fish are on the bank. They're on the bank. Because if that fish would have been let loose at Harris or had been let loose at Griffin, that fish would have been in the middle, needle in a haystack, been out in the middle of that hydrilla somewhere in the middle of that lake. Yep.
Did you ever look in the middle of Apopka?
I did not.
Yeah, neither did I.
Spent the entire time flipping stick in my hand for 2 days and still decided not to go back.
Can we move on from Florida?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's talk about something else.
So over the course of the 2 weeks that we didn't have shows, and we're going to get caught up on a bunch of stuff here, the NPFL, National Professional Fishing League, they announced last year that they were starting this league, 2 tournaments in the spring, 2 tournaments in the summer, 2 tournaments in the fall, kind of a meat and potatoes $5,000 entry fee, and a lot of live streaming going on too. And they ended up, I believe they ended up with 110 anglers, and that kicked off the second week of March on Lake Eufaula in Alabama. It actually was kind of right after Red Crest ended, which went from Grand to Texas to Eufaula. So then these guys, they were 108 that ended up actually fishing it. $5,000 entry fee. They paid $9,000 down to 36th place and had 10 live cameras all 3 days. One of the first tournament trails where all of the anglers fish 3 days. So there is no cut to it. And our boy, John Suka, from the Bass Tank, went out and did 20 pounds, 12 ounces, 20 pounds, 2 ounces, and then hung on, caught a 5-pounder for a 12-pound, 11-ounce bag on the last day and about a 3-pound victory. $50,000 over David Gassed in there. And I watched a lot of it.
I did too. I thought their coverage was really well. It was first rattle out of the bag. Those guys had some huge mountains to climb. And I thought the first one kicked off really, really well. A lot of new anglers, a lot of new faces there. I know who a lot of them are. You know who a lot of them are. But, that's a really cool situation with John Sukup in his first one there. I knew that dude was really prepared going into this year. Matt and I have already known for a long time that he is one of the top live scopers that is on the planet right now.
Top 10 right now, as
Absolutely,
far as
without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. And he proved it right off the bat. You know, to jump down there at Eufaula and to do that, what he did for 3 days, chasing those fish around with the live scope the way he did, and catch them on that Spro jerkbait was incredible.
He's actually down at Texas right now practicing for an ABA that's coming up.
He actually called me last night, and I was like, so what are you doing down there for an ABA? And he starts telling me, and I'm like, so when is your tournament? He's telling me, I'm like, why are you going right now? And he's like, well, I think I want to kind of change some things I'm doing. I'm like, wait, pump the brakes. Why do you want to change anything?
He's super analytical. He is actually going to be on BTL tomorrow to talk a little bit more about his win. We can get more in depth on that, but big win for John Sukup. And like I said, I kind of watched this. I was very intrigued on how this live stream would be. Luke Duncan and David Dudley, Fat Cat Newton on location. And for a first time, I said they always had an uphill climb. Yeah. Because when Bass went with their live coverage 5-6 years ago, you know, if it froze, if they didn't have a good signal, if the stream went down, that's fine. There's nothing to compare it to. It comes back and you're just happy because you're watching live fishing. There's nothing. Right. Then the FLW did it for a number of years as well. And they're like, well, you know, you only have 4 cameras, 5 cameras. Bass has more. And then the BPT started. So now you have the Pro Circuit stream and the Elite Series stream and the BPT stream. So it's really hard to come in right off the bat and make an impact because that's what everyone's comparing you to. Yeah. You follow what I'm saying there? Yeah. No, and absolutely. They had some glitches on the first day, but as a whole, I thought it was great. Now, here's the one thing that it kind of crossed my mind and that I'm a little bit concerned about and interested to see how this will evolve as the year goes on. There's got to be some sort of difference, Brad. There has to be something that makes me want to watch it over the Elite Series, over the BPT, over the Pro Circuit. Okay. Because here's the uphill climb. I know everybody on the BPT. I know everybody on the Elite Series. I know a lot of the guys on the Pro Circuit. They're guys that I follow. They're guys that I watch. You have Tommy Sanders and Mark Zona and all those guys over there, and the McKee and all. And you have all these established things. So what is it that is going to draw me into new with anglers that I don't know, that's going to hold my interest, especially when they're up against the familiar, the stuff that you know? Right.
Here's my opinion on it, and I feel this way. This is why I was so interested to see what would go down there, and I really was interested in their production, like you were, right? Because we work on that side of it as well, and to see how that all played out. I was the most interested in the fact that I know a few of these guys that are in this, right? And you do too as well. And the group of guys that make up this field, while you, like you say, they're guys that are unknown, dude, these are guys that have been doing this a long time, most of them. These are guys that have had families, careers, businessmen, all different walks of life. But these guys, for whatever reason, didn't ever try to make it to be, quote, quote, on a pro tour level, right?
And there's a number that have been on the pro tour. You had a Sheldon Collins and a number of
There's a few, but the majority is made up of these other guys that have fished at the BFL level.
Opens, Costas.
And Costas, right? And quite frankly, some of them have had quite a bit of success doing it, but they've never tried to take that leap. And so they put all their eggs into this basket. And the ones that I know, it's like something they've been waiting on, right? And I told somebody this. It's like, when you watched Rocky. I don't know if you are you a Rocky fan? Did you watch
I know. I've watched a couple of them.
So Apollo Creed, I believe it's in Rocky 2. Apollo Creed's there with his group, and he's talking, and they've re-signed, talking about fighting Rocky again. And his trainer's over there watching Rocky on TV where he's in there training, beating the sides of beef, And he's like, dude, we don't need a man like this in our life. Like, this is a man that I watched you beat, and he just kept coming back for more. And this group of anglers reminds me of that kind of guy. And it's the whole dang field. So I'm very interested in watching what they do in their results.
Now, there was something that happened, and I believe it was the first day, and I actually made a note of this because I wanted to talk about it, and it kind of set a little bell off in my head. So I think they had an issue where Luke and Dudley, who I thought both did a great job in the feed, both both of them have some experience, obviously not only fishing at the highest level, but also commentating, because Dudley has done the Costa Championship
FLW,
and FLW, and Luke has jumped in for FLW too the last couple years. But there was a little bit of a deal where they like couldn't hear the anglers, so they went away for like an hour or two. But there was a segment where you could hear the cameramen. And there were a couple cameramen that were asking the anglers questions as the day went on the water.
Yeah.
Now, that's another set of eyes right there. And most of these cameramen, if you've been in the boat with cameramen too, most of them are outdoor guys who can fish and know what's going on. I mean, it's
most. Not all.
Not all, but would you not agree that there's...
Yes.
And the best ones ask the right questions, but you could hear the cameraman asking questions to the angler.
Absolutely, yeah.
I thought that was cool. Because they're asking real-time stuff right there as it's going on, and you're getting the instant... Now, if I'm an angler and I've got a guy asking questions, I guess it's no different than a marshal asking questions, but I thought that was kind of a cool element to it, and I wouldn't be surprised. I would like to see that.
I think some of the other groups do that. I know that I've seen that on MLF. I think that they try to disguise the question being asked, and what you're saying is you like to hear
I like to hear the cameraman
ask that question.
Like that could be the difference, a cameraman being, dude... That was a big one. Tell us about that one.
Yeah.
You know?
I know with MLF, I've heard like JT and Marty talk about a question and then it's delayed, but you can tell the question was passed on to the cameraman and was asked.
So anyway, they did it. The drive-through weigh-in, I thought, not in the world we live in now, not a huge crowd that was there, but I thought that went smooth. It went a lot faster than a lot of the drive-through weigh-ins. So they're through with one. I hope they gain some momentum. Like I said, there's a lot of good dudes there. There's a lot of personalities that I liked watching.
There's some interesting stories. There's some really interesting stories over there.
Yep. So the next one they fish next month, I believe, on Wright Patman in Texas. Which, had you ever heard of Wright Patman before?
Yeah, we fished a BFL regional there.
Really?
Long time.
What kind of lake is that?
It's northeast Texas, and it's it's along the lines of an Oklahoma, North Texas. Baja, Oklahoma Lake, for sure.
Okay. Next, let's move on to the Elite Series because there's some crazy stuff. So, third Elite Series stop of the 2021 season.
Yep.
And they went to Pickwick, and they got their 3 days of practice in, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
Is there any other way to describe that?
No, they were typical Pickwick in March. I don't know what it is about our trips to Pickwick, but it seems like somehow you always find your way to a storm shelter with a tornado siren going off.
Yeah, they had tornadoes and then a ton of rain, and then the lake came up and it had been 2 foot low, and there was all sorts of debris and stuff, so it got postponed not 1 but 2 days. So instead of starting on Thursday, it started on Saturday, so today is the 3rd day.
Correct.
But I've been watching this, dude, and it looks really intimidating, and I'm glad you're in studio because I wanted to talk to you about this. Kobe Krieger, 25 pounds of smallmouth, a lot of 18 to 20-pound bags, and it looks like today, a couple hours into the day, there's a lot of guys with 15 to 20 pounds. But you're talking about guys who are going out and fishing 6-7 mile an hour current breaks. The closest thing I could compare it to is what we saw, I think Edwin won that tournament, but when Jared Miller was down below the dam at the Alabama River, and you're finding these current breaks behind dry structures that are in 10 foot of water now, and it's like a boiling cauldron all the way around, and then bam, there's a 5-pound smallmouth.
Right.
Have you ever experienced that on those Tennessee River, like where it's just...
I'm sure I have... I don't recall being there when it was just flooded and I ran straight to the dam because we were there for a tournament. It was very obvious that what's happening is the leaders are definitely stroking them out of the straight up. And it's more than 5 or 6 mile an hour too, by the way. Dude, that is...
Yeah, they said it was 7.
That stuff is strong.
It's boiling.
Yeah. They usually catch them a lot of times. The big play is always, like right underneath the dam. You remember when Davey Hyatt won there, and they ran, everybody was right up underneath it. And that's kind of taken away probably because that's probably 10 mile an hour. I mean, it's zooming, right?
I don't think you can even get up
that
there.
Close.
No.
It is definitely the player. It's power fishing at that point because it's easy. And what I mean by easy is it's like most of it is something you can see with your eyes, right? You can see the breaks with your eyes just in the current itself. and, big spinner baits, big heavy baits, because you got to get down fast. Boat control and boat safety is a big deal. These guys, if you're by yourself, we were talking about this before we came on air about, what's safety like, and water temperature's got a lot to do with that. But if you were to fall in, man, you could get separated from your boat very easily.
So do those fish swim to the current? Are those fish that they're catching, that Chris Zaldain is catching, that Kobe Krieger, that Steve Kennedy, that are in these little seams and breaks outside of the 7-8 mile an hour current, are those fish that were positioned in the general area and then just slid back to that? Do the fish all go from the dam to go try to find the current breaks? Because this stuff was dry 2 days ago. Like, where do those fish that were normally that are on 8 feet of dry land that are now in 7 feet of water, where do they come from?
So where the bridge is at Pickwick below the dam, right?
Yep.
I don't know how many miles that is, a mile and a half, 2 miles maybe.
Yeah, I'd say
tops.
that.
From that bridge basically up at normal pool, the center of that thing is only 17, 18, maybe 20 foot of water. It's not deep, right? All the way across it. So you have fish that live from one side of that riverbank to the other side of that riverbank and all the way up to the dam that live and relate to that current, right? They go from there to the dam all the time.
Right.
That's where a lot of the big smallmouth get caught. They live there, dude. So all that's happened is you're catching the fish that live there. The water has come up and rushes so hard that it's pushed a lot of them to current breaks that are very obvious. A lot of it's on the bank. And it just pushes those fish up there, and they have to get in that current break, but they feed very heavily. This is a TVA current generated fish. He already lives his life up there right below the dam anyway. That's what drives him, and right now is he's chewing, and it's showing. Those guys are stroking them.
So it's actually concentrating the fish,
absolutely.
making it easier to catch than it would have been.
110% easier. 110%. Like, without that current, then it becomes much more difficult. Because it spreads them out, because then they can go to this and that, and you can get 2 or 3 fish on this little piece of structure and 2 or 3 fish on this piece of structure, where when it's blowing this hard, like all 3 of those and all 3 of these and all 3 of those over there are all now just on this one rock. So now there's 15 of them right here.
I got you. But on a fishery like Grand, which can have a current on it, but let's say the gates are closed on Grand, it comes up 5-6 foot overnight. That's a lot more difficult to try to refine those fish than it is with current.
Yeah. Yeah, it can get to a point where it gets too high, and then it just goes forever, and you just got woods, and that's not a good deal. You've got to avoid that. That's, you don't want to just go fish in 6 foot of trees.
So that's why you saw so many guys in this tournament, the haves and the have-nots. You had like a Canterbury who had like 1 fish the first day. You had got like 5 or 6 zeros, and then they come back with 20 pounds the next day because they had no practice. So you either find a spot where they're living, and if you don't find where they're concentrated, you're kind of in trouble.
I don't know exactly what happened with that, but that was one of the biggest flips that I've seen in some time, where guys that really had good first days. And quite honestly, day 2 was a better fishing day than day 1 was. And I think it was primarily because the guys didn't really know what was going to be like when they got out there on day 1. And so by day 2, they've practiced a little bit, and they've got an idea of what they're, where the fish are and how to catch them. And so that upped the overall weight. But you had guys like Clark Winlet that had close to 20 pounds.
He had 20 pounds.
Day 1, and then the next day he's got like a 1 fish for 2 pounds.
Yeah. Or you had a guy like Chad Morgenthaler who had like 1 fish and then comes back with 22 pounds on the second day.
The whole field was like that.
Yeah,
it was up and down. And it was really strange. I don't understand why they fell. Like, if you had it figured out day 1, maybe it just kept changing. I don't know the answer to that, but it's obvious that the ticket is the guys below that dam are the ones within that 2 mile stretch.
Yeah, and once again, the guy who won the first event of the year, Brian New, is right now he's jumped up in the top 10. I think.
Now I say that I noticed Lowen. I was watching the video last night, and the turtle. I don't think he was just in straight on head on current.
No, he was doing some dock stuff and flipping some hay grass and doing all sorts of different stuff.
So he had it going yesterday for sure.
Yeah, but Brian New is really making his presence felt on the Elite Series. He's actually jumped up into the top 5 of the Angler of the Year now. We're a third of the way through the season after these 3, so I think he's going to be right there for the Angler of the Year race at the end. What do you think?
I expect him to. I expected him to before he took off. New's not surprising a lot of us that know him and know what he's about, and that's a lot of guys in the industry that do. New's been around. We can change gears with this too. This same thing is happening with Sheffield, right? I know that I watched quite a bit of the
BPT.
No, I
MLS?
watched quite a
Smith Lake.
I watched quite a bit of Smith Lake.
That would be the second stop of the tackle warehouse that took place a couple weeks ago on Smith.
And I noticed that JT and Marty were talking a lot about, Marty especially was talking about one of these groups of guys, right, that had qualified out of this tour, whether it be their Angler of the Years or whatever, that were going to get to fish the BPT. Before the year was over, he was saying one of these guys will either win or scare this to death. And I was thinking, well, yeah, especially with the group of guys that they're bringing through. And here we are right off the bat, and Sheffield is having an extremely strong tournament over there. There's a lot of guys out there on this planet, dude, that can fish, and he's one of them. I mean, his father is legendary, and Ron Sheffield that is fished forever.
What was that trucking company that they used to be sponsored by?
They were sponsored by a trucking company.
Because you'd pass them on the highway. There was a major one, and it would say proud sponsor of FLW, and now occasionally you'll see those trucks, and they're rebranded, but you can still see where that FLW, the fish with the circle logo, was on the back of the truck at one point in time.
Yeah.
Because I think didn't he get like his truck driver's license or something to be sponsored by them? I thought
that sounds right.
But we're talking about Spencer Sheffield. So the first BPT of the 2021 season kicked off yesterday on Sam Rayburn Reservoir, which had been on fire, and then they got high winds and the cold front moved through, and it rained for 3 days, and it was kind of tough on the first day. But one of the new things that the Major League Fishing did was, I believe, if you finish in the top 4 of the previous pro circuit event, you got an invitation to fish in the BPT.
I think he's in. So the first group that got to go, though, was like the first 4 in the Angler of the Year standings from last year, and that's where he's in, right? That's where he's in this tournament.
Okay. It's either the first...
I think that's right, because I think he's still got another one coming for what he just did
he did at Smith.
Absolutely.
Okay. Either finish top 4 in the Angler of the Year. I think you're right on that. But they basically just get a one-off. Now, they have to pay the entry fee.
Right.
Which I don't know. Is that like, what, $2,500 this year? I don't know what it is. I think it's something like that. But they get to fish in the BP. So this is his first time ever. And yesterday he went out and caught 9 fish for $29.12 to edge out Dustin Connell for second, who had a 9.5 fresh off of his Red Crest win. I know he was on BTL while we were down in Florida. But
awesome.
Yeah, Spencer Sheffield and then KVD finishing up in third on a lake that he's got a lot of history on.
What if one of those guys like Sheffield was able to make their final Red Crest Cup through 2 tournaments? Can they do that if he was to make 2 or 3?
Not through the points, I don't think.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. We need to figure out if he wins it. What if he wins the dang thing? Now, obviously, the weights are zeroed after the 2 days, and then after the final round. So he's got a long time to go before we get there. But it'd be interesting if you win one, but then you're not qualified for the next, so that you just go back down to the pro circuit. But I wonder where he's fishing today. I wanted to talk about John Cox too, because he was going to go back to back. Remember, he's fishing everything, right?
Yeah.
The Elite Series, the Pro Circuit, and the BPT. And he was one of those guys. He had a horrible first day on Pickwick, which should have been on Thursday, but was on Saturday.
Yep.
And then the second day he had, 15-something, but he missed the cut, which actually turned out good because he's in Group B of the BPT. I did a map quest. It's a 10-hour drive from the Pickwick Dam to Sam Rayburn Reservoir.
That's not bad.
They started at 8 in the morning. He got weighed in at 4 p.m. yesterday, got in the truck. I think he got in the truck. He might have drove. I don't know. Drove all night, got a couple hours of sleep, and he is now out on the water in 12th place as we speak. He caught 1 3-pounder fishing the BPT today on Sam Rayburn with 0 practice.
Jesus, that guy. You know, the last time he was there, he won there too, right?
Yeah, what would he have done if he had made the cut on the Elites? Do you take a 50th and just go fish your first round of the BPT?
Probably. I have no idea. That guy, he probably decides. I guess if he's in the top 10, he thinks he's got a shot to win. Maybe he rides it out. But if he's in, like you say, 45th, 46th, maybe just like, check me out, I'm done.
Oh, and he did the cornrows.
Oh, he's cornrowed his hair.
Remember when I showed you the hair picture and you were like, that's not real, that's like photoshopped?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it's real. It's real, and now it's in cornrows.
Oh, my gosh. I watched him a lot with his last win. Like I say, I watched a lot of that stuff there. And that guy, he's, I'm covering water. I just what he is. This is what he is, dude. I've watched him for a long time. He is the greatest pond fisherman on the planet. And what I mean by that is, it's like if you had a small pond, he will catch every single fish. So like he maximizes his water as well as anyone I have ever seen. He takes a small piece of water and he catches every stinking thing that lives there, like every one of them. He's incredible at it. I mean, shallow pond, and he gets into that pond, and then if there's 6 bass that live in there, he's going to catch all 6 of them.
You competed against him for a number of years.
Yeah.
Did it ever surprise you following a tournament? Like you're like, he caught him how? Because it always seems like he finds some weird off-the-wall thing that suits his strength while everyone else is doing a lot of opposite stuff.
Yeah, I remember one in particular tournament on Kentucky Lake. We had a tour event there in the summertime, June. It's cranked up. I mean, it's definitely ledge fishing. And he had a good tournament. I don't remember if he made a top 10 or not. I had a decent event in that tournament too. He was fishing the islands, but he was still on the bank. So he was out in the river, but yet he was still bank beating, like literally, frogging, that kind of stuff, and had an extremely good tournament. I was amazed at that. That surprised me, because that's one where everybody just kind of all goes all in and goes, okay, well, I say almost everybody, but I mean, I know there's bank fish in Kentucky Lake. Maybe that's a little extreme, but it was a lot to see him do that there. The stuff up north, smallmouth, we've seen him do extremely well now offshore out there and do that. I don't know how long it took him to fight that, but I've definitely seen him out there in the middle of St. Clair.
Do you feel, and we're seeing kind of a trend in the aluminum boats now, there's a lot of guys that are running Express, he runs a Crestliner. Right. Do you feel like out of all of the guys running the aluminums that he uses it the most to his advantage? Well,
when he brought in the aluminum boat, I mean, you got to give him street cred for this dude. Like he was, I'm not saying that other guys didn't have aluminum boats, because there were guys that would run a boat, have a good tournament.
Yeah, Steve Kenny, 2010 or 2011 Classic. And you remember he had a little boat, Brat was peeling off.
But to actually make it part of his game, like that is who he is, that is his game, that is what he is. And to actually mold that into, okay, this is a strategy for bass fishing, and I'm going to make it work across the country. Like I say, Steve Kennedy, I did think about him doing it. He did do it all year when bass passed the rule that you had to keep the same boat all year long, if that's what you were going to run. But yeah, man, I mean, he's a trailblazer in that department, I think. And now there's aluminum boats everywhere. But now aluminum boats have come a long ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, compared to what they were. But dude, there's a lot of aluminum boats. John Sukup just won out an aluminum boat.
He did
offshore.
Yeah, that's all he fishes. He's either way up in stuff you can not get anything over, or he's offshore.
Right.
Here's what we're going to do. I have teased this for a number of segments now. I'm just proud that I have a basketball reference. We're going to compare March Madness to something that happened with Gerald Swindle and John Sappington in 2002. We're going to run a couple commercials first. See what I did? Like, I always thought our commercial block was too long, so I was like, I'm running the show. I'm going to split it up into 2 groups now.
Hey, you're calling the shot over there.
So we'll run the second group commercials.
Pro-inspired, pro-designed. Tested and proven by legends on the water. Dominating the tournament trail for over 50 years. Everything you need, one legendary brand. Strike King.
Hey guys, Major League Fishing Pro Jacob Wheeler here with my new Signature Series line of rods with Duck It Fishing. We have my 7.2 cranking rod right here. Crankbaits can be very fickle, and having the right, having a lot of tip can be too much, and having not enough tip can, lose a lot of fish. So you really got to be careful. If there's 1 or 2 techniques that I'm really adamant about having the perfect action as a crankbait, especially like a square bill, a DT6, those medium running crankbaits in the springtime when those fish's mouth are pretty tough. That's when I'm really on top of having my actions just perfect.
Utilizing my experience, utilizing my time on the water, evolving as an angler, and that evolution should never stop. You have to do it every day. From when you wake up in the morning, you got to be thinking about continually changing every minute, every cast. That's really the premise of fishing the moment.
Hey everyone, Brandon Polnick here. People always be asking me what I got tied on. And I'm like, X-Zone lures. And they're like, Brandon, why you got X-Zone lures tied on? And I'm like, let me show you why. The bite.
Get out of there. Get out of there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's freaking digging.
Get in here. Oh, God. Giant. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I think you get the point.
Big companies get bigger and bigger and talk about their fancy labs where they study fish behavior, but then they all go golfing on the weekend. We don't have a large laboratory to test baits. Why, you ask? We don't need a big laboratory because our pros fish, our employees fish, our salespeople fish, our suppliers fish, our mold builders fish, our owners fish, and our kids fish. This is our laboratory. Our R&D comes from time on the water, learning how to make fish bite. All that time on the water brings us thousands of hours of testing new products and improving current ones for all species.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
All right, we are back for the final segment of BTL. Talked with our fearless leader, Mark Jeffries, in the first segment.
Yep.
And then talked about the 9 million tournaments and things that have been going on over the past 2 weeks. It was actually good to see Aaron Martins there in that last commercial.
Absolutely.
Obviously kind of been off and on with some of the stuff that he's been going through. But fished yesterday at the in the BPT. He only had one keeper over 2 pounds, but it was a 613. So he's in 24th place going into his round 2 tomorrow. So good to see that. All right, Brad. Have you been following the March Madness at all? We had Illinois, the number 1 seed, go down. We had Ohio State, the number 2 seed, go down. We had Oklahoma State. We had a bunch of crazy upsets. And I'm not a huge basketball guy. I put up with it because it's Mark's lifelong passion, and I've learned more and more about it as he has gotten deeper and deeper into his coaching career. But are you a big March Madness guy?
Well, I know that my Sooners are still playing, right? Boomer play tonight?
For now. They got the number 1 seed tonight, though.
Don't start all that with me.
I think that's Gonzaga, right?
Yeah. Giant killers, maybe. You never know.
They got a shot?
Yeah, we always got a shot. That's why they play the game, dude. Hey, number 1 seed went down yesterday by the name of Illinois, did they not?
They were. They're the number 2 team overall in it. But I bring up March Madness because we'll have a very few time. And I'm a little bit of a historian here. Not nearly along the level of Ken Duke or anything like that, but I did a little bit of research because I had remembered in the back of my head they were talking about guys that were the teams that were seeded incorrectly or that made the tournament that shouldn't, and Syracuse, and then like that Loyola should have been a higher seed, and anyway. And I was like, dude, I remember when they did the bracket style. It was either called the Irwin Jacobs Cup, the FLW Cup, the Forrest Wood Cup Championship, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was like a wild bracket seeding.
Okay.
So I went back and I pieced together articles from the old FLW website, articles on Bass Fan, and articles on all. This was, way before like we were covering it on location. So like in 2002, and the way I could piece it together was like, so the Angler of the Year was like a 1 seed.
Yeah.
And then like 47th in the Angler of the Year standings was like the 47 seed, and then it'd go 2, 46, 3, 45, all the way down.
Okay, I know where you're going with this.
So then you made your bracket.
Yep.
So then you go to this $265,000 championship, I think it was in 2002 was the first year they did it. They did it either 3 or 4 years, and by the end, the independent articles were like, it's time for another tournament that no one likes and everybody hates. And then they did it. And seriously, there's an article. It's like, well, it's that time of year where we have a tournament that no one likes.
I actually heard the suggestion of bringing something like that on.
Really?
Yes, but it was,
Nixed?
Yeah,
Put the kibosh on it?
Yeah, jury's still out.
So they did this, and so they would do the first 2 rounds. So like if you were the angler of the year and I was 47, I would fish against you for 1 day, and if I had more weight than you, then I was gone. Which, if you think about it, fishing is crazy because when you get to that level...
Now, when you say you were gone, you're in, I'm gone.
If you beat me, I'm out.
Oh, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Which is crazy to put it all into 1 day after a guy wins the Angler of the Year. I mean, everyone's a tour level angler. You know how much variation there is in fishing.
But it wasn't so much that. It was that you could have caught 21 pounds and had the second biggest bag of everyone in the first round, and I could have had 22 and beat you.
You're gone. See you next year. You don't get anything.
Yeah.
So they did that the first 2 rounds. Then they zeroed everyone, I think, after every round.
Yeah.
And then you reseed based on your standings.
Yeah.
And then you reseed again, and then it gets down to the finals, and then the 1 seed versus the 2 seed.
No, they let the top 10 fish, like the last day. That's how I remember it.
No, not the first time, because
time they did not.
Sappington went up against Swindle. They're the 1 and 2 seeds where Sappington beat Swindle by 5 ounces. So the 1 seed fish versus the 2 seed, and then the 3 seed fish versus the 4 seed, and then the 5 seed fish versus the 6th seed. So the 3 and 4 were fishing for 3rd and 4th. And the others were fishing for 5th and 6th money. But the only 2 guys that went out on that day were Sappington and Swindle fishing for 1st and 2nd.
Okay.
So even if the guy who was a 6th seed caught 25 and the 1 and 2 seeds only caught 12, one of those 1 and 2 seeds, so you knew who was going to win the cup.
Correct.
Or whatever they called it at the time.
Right.
But it just reminded me of March Madness that that's how the Forest Wood Cup title was decided for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it did not go over well. Maybe it was good for the fans, I guess. But, man, for an angler, that would be so frustrating. Yeah. Beyond belief. To know that you had one of the best days on the lake of everyone else out there, but yet you were just unfortunate enough to go up against the one guy. That's who you were paired with, right? I mean, there were guys making it that caught like 3 pounds.
Yeah, and guys that caught like 15 pounds that didn't. Because I went through the whole progression of it for the number of years that they did it. And I just crazy that they did that way.
I thought it was funny when you were like, they were talking about it 3 years in. This is the tournament everybody hates.
I wish I had that article pulled up. It was like, well, it's that time again for the tournament that no one likes, but everyone watches because it's crazy. And I think they did it through like 2006, I believe. Because then when it was gone, it was like, and we're back to actual tournaments.
Yeah.
But where was I going with this?
You were comparing to the NCAA. So those two had the comparison with something that happened recently?
So this is where I go with this. So I find it interesting that you have a lot of people who want to rip on the BPT for rule changes.
Yeah.
Minute rule changes.
Right.
And format changes and zeroing of weights afterwards. Like, oh my gosh, they're going to ruin the sport doing this. How is this possible?
Right.
No, I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of it. I'm not saying that everybody agrees with it as far as the zeroing the weight. Understand we've already done massive shows as why they have to do it. But when you look back over 20 years ago, the way FLW, which was just coming on in its heyday, you're talking team deals and Walmart and money rolling in and 18 different camera angles and ESPN2 when they actually did live stuff back then. Mm-hmm. And the way their championship was decided for a number of years there, which in all honesty was decided that way so it would be better on TV. Would you not agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could have people who didn't know what fishing was going, okay, this guy's fishing against this guy, and if he has more weight, he moves on, and I understand what a bracket looks like because of March Madness or because of any tournament scenario.
I agree.
He's seeding, he's higher, he should win, this is an upset, it's super easy to follow. But I don't ever remember like any of the... It's just ironic to me that you're saying, oh, we've never done any of this, they're changing it. But, dude, this stuff's been going on for 20 years with different formats.
It has. And I remember when that format came out, I think that not everybody was... There was a lot of people that were like, hey, this could be cool, this could be different. But it just didn't work, right? I never was a fan of it. I thought I liked the idea of some originality, something being different. But like I say, for the anglers, man, it just wasn't a good shake. For the fan base, I mean, maybe it was okay, but man, to get put out knowing that you got beat and you had 15 pounds and there's one of your buddies that only caught 3 pounds and he's fishing tomorrow and you're not because the guy he was against only caught 1 fish or didn't catch any, and you had a top 10 bag that day. It's hard to swallow. What it did was that deal right there took away from us competing against the fish, not the fishermen, right? Like we've all heard that a million times, competing against the fish, not the fishermen. But dude, that right there, that pretty much puts you against the fishermen.
Have you ever fished a zeroing the weights midway through the tournament?
No, FLW did that for a long time too. You would fish 2 days and then they zero weights. And there were a lot of guys that didn't win tournaments back then that would have won them had they been able to keep their first 2-day weights.
Yeah.
That's fact.
Yeah, I remember. I think Randy Blockett just did a deal about it a couple weeks ago where he's like, and I count these 6 that I was leading after day 2 that they had to zero the weights.
Yeah, bad deal.
They did that in two. This is I bring that up because in 2007, 2006, 7, one of those years, maybe it was 8. It was my last year of college. We did the college bass national championship. Me and Chip Porcher. And it was on the Arkansas River. There were only like 40 teams in it. But it was the top 5 teams. You fish 2 days, everybody, and then the weight zero, and then it's a 1-day shootout for the national championship. We were on the Arkansas River at Little Rock, and we found a crap pipe. That's with a P, not a CK. Crap pipe. That had some current blown out of it.
Yep.
And we caught 5 on the first day and then sat there for 6 hours and didn't make another cast.
Fertile water.
Super fertile. And then we caught 4 on the second day, but one was like a 4-pounder. So then we sat there and didn't make any other casts.
Her name was Myrtle. Fertile Myrtle.
And then the weight zeroed. And, I mean, we could have sat there and coiled up. I mean, they're blowing up all around us. Well, on the last day, striper guy in a pontoon boat is pulled up with it.
Wow.
Refuses to move. We ask him everything. He's like, no, taking my kids striper fishing.
My day off.
You need to find somewhere else to fish.
Yeah.
And they catch like 18 pounds, 10 feet from us because they're sitting right in front of the crap pipe.
Yeah.
And we end up only catching 3 on the final day, and Virginia beats us. Tie for second, lose the tiebreaker, get third because we only weighed in 4 on the second day because we knew we were making it the final day. And so that's my experience with the weight zeroing at the end. And I still think about that all the time. It's like, dude, we had the winning pattern there, and then our weights were zeroed.
Yeah.
But it was for the College Bass National Championship that was on ESPNU, and they wanted all 5 teams to have a shot going into the final day for a better TV show.
100%. And that format was definitely designed for better television, no doubt. That's what that was. So everybody was at even playing field and going day 4. But a lot of these impoundments have been so pressured and beat up. By the time we get to day 4, a lot of the stuff that they fished back then, FLW, a lot of their schedule. I mean, Beaver Lake was pretty stingy on day 1, not to mention day 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's hard on them. It's hard on everybody to get back in the saddle and do that. But they definitely did that for television, no doubt.
It is. What else you got, Brad?
Man, I don't have a whole lot. I was watching an Ott Defoe video the other day on his YouTube. It was a cool one. He's got a new one. I don't even think it's new. I think it's old. I don't know when it is. Maybe it was 6 months ago. Maybe it was 6 days ago. I don't know the answer to that. I watch so much YouTube. Anyway, confrontation on a dock. You know, this is becoming an everyday part of our life.
Ott had a confrontation?
No. Ott,
I haven't seen this video.
Ott was fishing with his wife.
Okay.
And the dock owner still just rails on him. And I think Ott at first kind of thought he was kidding. And his response was, yeah, we're just, out fishing. And the guy just kept on. The guy's wife actually said, where do you guys live? I'll come put my lawn chair in your front yard and sit in your front yard for a while. And, my Ott doesn't say anything. He bites his tongue and moves on. But, man, it's just becoming such an everyday part of life. Like, we can all see the guy before he even comes. Like, we know, like, we're going down the bank. You can see the guy up there, like he turns his weed eater off and you're like, yep, here he comes. And I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, to be able to do what they want to do, what these people think in real life. And I mean, they're pissed about it. There's no changing their mindset on it. But dude, I mean, in reality, you would need to go buy 80,000 acres of land, clear all the trees out, build a dam, put your house on the edge of it, and it's yours. And then you don't. But when you build your house on public water, what?
What do you? I mean, yeah, it's public water.
I don't get it, but maybe we see it all the time.
How many times have you? I'm intrigued by this. How many times have you not gotten into it, but been
many
yelled at or aggressively comment or told to leave where it's obviously public water? You're not hitting their stuff. You're literally just fishing a dock. Like how many times would you say over your career that's happened?
It's happened enough and so much that here's what scares me is that I'm getting older. And like I say, I see it coming before it happens because I see that guy. I see the look in his, I know it's coming. And it aggravates me more than it should.
It happened to you in practice at Florida.
It happened to me at an open. It happened to me in practice at Florida.
Yeah, didn't you? You got back after that first day of our practice in Griffin, and you were like, I had a bad day.
I had a guy tell me in a canal. It's a restaurant. It was in the back of a canal. He's got a boat dock there, and he's got a restaurant. This is up at the north end of Griffin in the river, and he's like, and I saw the sign. I'm just piddling. This is like the very first day we done it, but I could care less. And I'm just strolling through there, and I started making a U-turn before he even said anything because I knew it was coming, and I just didn't even want to hear it, And that's exactly what it was. Hey, my boss says no fishing in here. Well, okay. And I just left. I don't even argue with them. Like, what's the point? But the point is that eventually they're going to get that right. That's what's going to happen. I mean, somehow that's going to change. But it's a bad deal that we face because all that water and all those lakes were paid for by taxpayers, not just us, our grandparents. I mean, for a long time, a lot of generations.
I've never had that happen to me.
What?
When I've never had anyone yell at me for fishing their dock.
Marinas?
Never.
Marinas, it's constant.
I've not ever.
It's constant, marinas.
And like I said, I obviously don't have the 20 years of touring experience like you do, but I've fished enough tournaments and I fish a lot of docks and a lot of marinas.
I got yelled at in a canal.
I've never gotten yelled at, dude.
By crappie fishermen. There was like 5 of them just right in the mouth of a canal. A big canal, but they were at the mouth. Dude, I'm off pad. I do not have my foot on the hot foot. It is not on it. Like, it is as slow as my boat will idle. I go through 2 of them. The third guy, sure enough, throwing an awful big wake there, aren't you, sir?
That's never happened to me.
What do you want me to do?
How
Get
have
on
I
my
never
trolling
gotten
boat and come
yelled at?
through? I don't know. I don't know how.
I just fish nice people docks, I guess. Because I was in the same
it's
lake
coming.
and the same thing. And
it's coming.
There was a guy and he had his foot propped up and he had a cast on it. And it was one of those first days of practice. It was probably, what were we there, Saturday?
Yeah.
Sunday?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't off limits or anything. You'd still get info. And he's like, you're about an hour late. And I said, huh? And he goes, big ones are only up here till 8 a.m. It's 9. And I said, say that again? And he's like, yeah, the big ones swim around this dock until 8. And then they go out in the middle till 9 because all you guys come through here starting around 9.
Yeah.
And I said, really? And he's like, yeah, get back here tomorrow. He goes, I can't catch him. He goes, I broke my damn leg getting out of the boat.
Yep.
He goes, so but I get the nice guys, I guess.
I don't know, man. Look, I totally am on board with the laws and the way they are. I totally respect that their dock is their private property. Their boat that is tied up to those docks or in those slips is their private property. I do not agree with getting on top of people's docks or people's marinas, which we've seen in some stuff.
Yeah.
To me, that's illegal and trespassing.
Right.
110%. I mean, I think you could be written up for it, whatever. I think
even
it's
if your
trespassing.
bait's stuck to where it could get in someone's foot on top of the dock in the back.
That's what I do. I try not to leave bait. So, like, when you make that cast with a jig or something and it gets stuck in a rope, I do go get that jig. Do I run a risk of, is that trespassing? 110%. Do I deserve to get yelled at? But I'm trying to do a good thing. But if I run into that guy, and I haven't ran into that guy in that moment yet, but I do try to remove that hook because what I think of is some kid like mine coming down there. He runs his hand down that rope untied. His dad's, yelling at him or whatever. And he's in a panic and he's trying, and then he runs his hand right through that hook. And I don't think that's
or they
cool.
sit off the edge of the dock and there's a treble hook there or something on the top. Yeah. But if it's a cross beam in the back corner where you can't see it and it's out of the way, you're just breaking that off. You're not going to get off of the dock and walk around and go get it.
I don't know if it's YouTube. I don't know if it's all the cameras. I don't know. But to me, it seems to be getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting worse.
We've had guys on who are 50-50 on that. Go off and get your lure or don't.
I don't like
trespass.
Hooks and
I don't either, but I also don't like trespassing. I'm kind of a nervous guy.
It is trespassing.
I mean, you don't know. You could get that guy that someone had just broken into his pontoon boat the week before and he sees you walking around and I mean, dude, you're trespassing on his dock around his stuff that he just had stolen.
Yep.
You're kind of playing with fire there.
Look, dude, we're not around that dock in that $70,000 rig.
But they don't see that from the house. They just see someone walking in the house.
They never think that. It's always to that, or it's just the fact that they just don't even want to look at you while they're sitting in their backyard. That's boils down to a lot of that too.
You know what that is?
That's the end.
That's the exit music.
Hey, we did this successfully.
We did it successfully for 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 27 seconds. Folks, thanks for being patient with us for the last couple weeks as Mark recovers and will continue to recover. Are you going to be in studio tomorrow?
I am. I'm going to come join you.
You're cool. I appreciate it. We have John Sukup. He will be live from the water at Sam Rayburn. I think he's just going to be floating out there. I actually did BTL from Rayburn from the Open this year and had a pretty good signal in an area. So he's going to talk about his $50,000 win in the NPSL. The Bass Tank is absolutely killing it. His buddy Zeke, who's actually their first full-time employee there, I talked about it, did an article on it for on bestontour.net. Sign up for that. Went to college or high school together. Graduated in 2000. He won Zeke won Crappie Masters. Sukup won the NPSL. They won over 60,000. They have 2 giant trophies. Everything is good there. So
giant trophies.
Thanks for all the well wishes for Mark. I don't think Mark's going to make an appearance tomorrow. He might. It just kind of depends. But we will have John Sukup in the meantime. A lot of action on the Elite Series. A lot of action on the BPT. Brad, thanks for coming in. Glad you're back. Hope the truck gets fixed.
Boomer Sooner tonight.
Boomer Sooner tonight as we try to make it to the Sweet 16.
That is correct.
We're out of here.